Well, Elizabeth Bishop is a great poet. I'm not sure it's because she never wrote a bad poem. She never wrote a bad poem, I don't think.
I think of all poets, Elizabeth is most admired by the most varied group of poets.
I would like to have been Elizabeth, I think, to have had those wonderful images, those very amusing images inhabiting my mind. Just as, I don't know, I would like to have been Mozart for the same kind of reason. Not for fame, but because of the music.
She didn't want to be in the public eye. She was a very shy, very private person. She, left America for 15 years to live in Brazil. She never found a place in the world that she could really call home, that she could be absolutely comfortable with.
She gave herself no airs. If there was anything the least bit artificial about her character and her behavior, it was the wonderful way in which she impersonated an ordinary woman. Underneath, of course, was this incredible, fresh genius who wrote the poems that you adored.
At Vassar, I was class of 33, and she was class of 34. I entered the fall of the crash of September 29. So we lived through college in the Depression years. And so we were rather, I think, more rebellious, more different, though not necessarily in conventional ways. Vassar was the way it always is, and it was educating girls rather well in a sort of classroom way, but I think also inculcating a certain notion of superiority that was very, very Vassar. Elizabeth had a very amusing face. She had amusing hair, which was very, very electric and kinky, alive. She looked like somebody from the last century. It was funny that a girl who was so shy and also so independent went out for things. I think we had more sense of her as a comic writer. I think of a poem she wrote about living next to the toilet. Let's see if I can remember it. Ladies and gents, flushing away your excrements, I sit and hear beyond the wall the sad continual waterfall that sanitary pipes can give to still our actions primitive. Now that poem was well known in the smoking room of our hall.
The fascinating thing about Elizabeth as an undergraduate was how accomplished a writer she already was. And of course, Marianne Moore was her great influence and someone who really took Elizabeth under her wing for many years.
Finally, Elizabeth met her, and she met her through Fanny Borden, the Vassar librarian, who was an old friend of Marianne Moore, that she arranged the introductions.
They hit it off remarkably and became great friends. They went to the circus together. Marianne Moore had a passion for circuses and, of course, wrote lots of poems about animals.
Certainly between Bishop and Marianne Moore, there are resemblances. So the sort of close microscopic inspection of certain parts of experience, aspects of experience, I think there was something a bit too demure about Marianne Moore, and there's nothing demure about Elizabeth Bishop.
And of course it was a lifelong friendship, and particularly important in Elizabeth's career because it was Marianne who got her first poems. Elizabeth's first poems were published in an anthology. It was called Trial Balances, and it consisted of new poets introduced by older poets, and Marianne introduced Elizabeth.
Her first book was called North and South. It was published in 1946. I think North and South really does embody a kind of central idea in her work, that these two things, these two polarities, and they are polarities, both exist at the same time. The first poem is called The Map, which was probably the first poem that she wrote after she graduated from Vassar and was first published in 1935.
Whether she knew it or not, the map raises questions and feelings that would be with her for the rest of her writing life. It's a poem that dates from the early 30s, and she was still able to call her last book, published in 1976, Geography 3. She was fascinated by where things were in relation to one another.
The map. Land lies in water. It is shadowed green. Shadows, or are they shallows, at its edges, showing the line of long seaweeded ledges where weeds hang to the simple blue from green. Or does the land lean down to lift the sea from under, drawing it unperturbed around itself? Along the fine tan sandy shelf is the land tugging at the sea from under. The shadow of Newfoundland lies flat and still. Labrador's yellow, where the moony Eskimo has oiled it. The names of seashore towns run out to sea. The names of cities cross the neighboring mountains. The printer here experiencing the same excitement as when emotion too far exceeds its cause. These peninsulas take the water between thumb and finger like women feeling for the smoothness of yard goods. Mapped waters are more quiet than the land is, lending the land their wave's own conformation. And Norway's hair runs south in agitation. Profiles investigate the sea where land is. Are they assigned, or can the countries pick their colors? What suits the character or the native waters best? Topography displays no favorites, north's as near as west. More delicate than the historians are the map-makers' colors.
The map is, in a way, an image of a whole natural, emotional, vivid, passionate, almost childlike world, a more lovable enterprise than writing down the deeds of human beings, which